Hello my friends, in this fun Procreate lesson, we'll be designing our very own, very rare Labubu character. This project includes a completely free set of cute brushes and has a fur brush that I promise you're going to love using. Ooh, so satisfying. If you've never used blending modes before, you're going to get a lot of practice using them to shade our gremlin here. The only thing you'll need for this project is this free template I've made for you and the custom brushes. You can grab it for free using the link below, or better yet, you can scan this QR code to download it directly to your iPad. All you have to do is find the camera on your iPad. From here, you're going to point it at the code and wait for the yellow link to appear before tapping on it. With the template in our browser, we can hold down on it and choose Save to Photos from the options. For the brushes, you're just going to repeat the steps by scanning the new QR code. This time you'll see a blue download button and you're going to jump to this little circle with the arrow pointing down. That's where your download hides. And the name of the brushes is Uli-verse Labubu. So you're going to tap on that and it's going to import it into Procreate. Let's open up Procreate and jump right in. To load our template, we're going to go to Photo right here. And the first thing we're going to do is set up our layers. So we're going to go to the layers and tap on the plus sign and create a layer 2. Then we're going to go to the wrench and go to Canvas and we're going to turn on our drawing guide. And we want to choose Edit Drawing Guide to find the Symmetry tool. So you're going to see these options here and Symmetry is this one. So you should see a line going up and down your screen. And then we can hit the checkbox. We're going to get started here. So we're going to go to the brushes and we're going to go to the custom brushes called Uli-verse Labubu and we're grabbing the Monoline for the start of the project. For the size of the brush, we're going to set it to 40%. There's a little marker there to help us. And we're going to grab color number 2 for the base of the eyes. So you can just grab that right off your template. And the first part we're going to be drawing is this part of the eye. And then I'm going to draw the bottom. And you should get 2 eyes at the same time. So the symmetry will give us both eyes at the same time. So when we're done drawing our eye like this, we're just going to take that white color and just drop it in to create a nice solid shape. For this next part, we're going to go to our layers and we're going to make sure we have a new layer. We're going to set it to clipping mask and we're also going to set it to drawing assist. The drawing assist allows both sides. Great. And then we're going to grab color number 1. And we can use our shape tool here. So if I draw a shape that looks like this and hold my pen down, it's going to give me a nice shape. And then this edit button is going to help me adjust the shape so that I can get equal spacing all around the eye, as close as possible. For the eye, we're just going to close the shape here at the top and then we can color in the eye like that. But sometimes our spacing isn't quite right. So I can see here it's a little bit closer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my magic wand and go to liquify and I can make little adjustments. Especially with symmetry, liquify, it works really well with symmetry. So we're going to set the mode to push. Sometimes push is right here depending on the orientation of your iPad. And then we're going to make sure distortion and momentum are off. And then 30% for pressure. And then I'm going to set the size to 30%. I'm going to just pull the eye up like this. So I can kind of play around with it and push it back so that I get equal spacing all around the eye. And you can use the liquify tool at any point to kind of help you out. So if you're noticing that something is off, you can use the liquify tool to fix it. So we're going to go to our layers and we're just going to turn on alpha lock for this layer. And then let's go to our brushes and we're going to grab soft brush. And then color number 5. So we're going to set the size to 3% and you can leave the opacity at 30% here at this marker. And then I'm going to take this reddish color and I'm going to add it here to the bottom of the eyes. You'll see this a lot with kawaii eyes. It kind of adds some more depth to the eyes. It kind of looks a little evil, which works well with our Labubu, but even for like cute characters, this looks kind of nice. Let's grab color number 7 and then we're going to go to the whites of the eyes. So I'm going to go back to this layer and alpha lock it. And the eyeballs, like the eyelids, are going to cast a little shadow here. So I want to add a little bit of this gray color here and here. We're going to open up our layers and we're going to go back to the black parts of the eye. And this is my favorite part. We can add some glimmers and things to the eyes. So I'm gonna grab color number 2, and then you can decide what glimmers and stars to add. So I really like this flare brush. So I'm gonna set my brush to 15% for the size, but you might have to kind of play around with the size depending on the shape that you choose. And then I'm also gonna go back to the monoline and maybe make my brush a little bit bigger, maybe like 60%, and then I can add some little dots. So I'm gonna do like 60% and maybe like 85%. And now we have cute sparkly eyes. So for the nose of the Labubu, we're gonna go to our layers and we're gonna start a brand new layer. And then let's pick out the skin tone that we want. So I'm gonna be using color number 3, but if you would like to use a different skin tone, you can choose between these cubes. And then I have my monoline set to 40%, and then I'm gonna draw a little oval for the nose. So I'm gonna draw the oval and hold my pen down to get the shape. I'm also gonna use the edit button to help me kind of center it. So even though we're not using symmetry to draw the nose, we can still center it with the line and kind of adjust it so the blue circles are touching the line. And then we'll color that shape in. And I like to make sure, so if I go to the arrow, I can make sure my nose is kind of a little bit higher up, because the Labubu noses aren't like human noses. They aren't underneath our eyes. They're in between the eyes. So let's add a little shadow to the nose. So we're gonna tap on the layer and turn on Alpha Lock. And then we're gonna go to our brushes and we're gonna grab the soft brush again. And for the size, I'm gonna use 3%. And I'm gonna take my original color here and I'm gonna go to the disc and I'm gonna drop this circle down to get a darker color. And I'm also gonna push it to the right. So I'm basically gonna create like an L shape. And this will help us find like a really nice shadow color. And then I can add the shadow here on the bottom of the nose like this. That way when we add the rest of the face, the nose doesn't blend in with it. And then let's make our brush even smaller, maybe like 2%. So we're gonna add a highlight to the nose. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the original color of my nose, and this time I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm gonna go up and to the left a little bit to grab like a nice highlight color. And then with 2% for my brush, I'm gonna just add a little highlight to the top of the nose to make it look shiny. Now let's draw the face of our Labubu. So we're gonna go down to layer 1 and we're gonna start a new layer on top. And this layer is gonna be a drawing assist layer because we want both sides. So I'm gonna turn on drawing assist and I'm gonna pick out my monoline mini and 40% for the size. And I'm gonna be using color number 3 again, but you can use whatever skin tone you picked out. And then I'm gonna draw the outside of my Labubu. And it's very hard to draw this all in one go, so I'm just gonna zoom in and just really take my time and draw it in smaller parts like this. Once we have the shape done, we're gonna take the color and just drop it in. So I'm gonna make my Labubu a classic Labubu with the smile that it has, but if you wanna turn it into your own creation, you can draw your face any way you want. So let's start a new layer, and this layer is also going to be a drawing assist layer so that we get the symmetry. And then we're going to turn our brush down to the bottom marker, so it's probably like 10%. And then color number 11. So the original Labubu has a really wide smile like this, and it kind of goes past the eyes, so this is kind of what it looks like here. And when you're drawing the smile, it's gonna be really hard to get this middle part to match up nicely. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my eraser and just erase that part if it's not working out, and then I'll just redraw it a little bit more carefully like this. So symmetry is great for a lot of things, but it does sometimes buckle there in the middle. So for the teeth, we're gonna go back to the layer with the face here, and then we're just gonna start a new layer so that it's underneath our mouth. And this layer is also gonna be a drawing assist layer. So I'm gonna grab color number 2, and I like to start with the middle tooth because I find it's easier to space them out. So I'm gonna draw this middle tooth. And you just have to remember to draw a line here at the top so that you can color these teeth in. And actually the teeth are a little bit wider than what I drew there. So I'm gonna draw them maybe like this. And then they have like a little bit of space between them. And then you can draw the next one. So take your time with the teeth because I feel like the teeth are an important part of the character design. We're going to draw the fur, and we're going to start a new layer here at the very top. And of course, we need drawing assist. You can make your fur any color that you want, but I'm going to make mine color number 9. Whatever color you decide, try not to make it too dark or too light, because then there's not a lot of room to adjust it. So we want kind of an in the middle color. So we're going to make our brush 40% for the size for our monoline, and the Labubu, its head is really tall above forehead, but very short underneath the chin. So I'm going to draw these markers to kind of help me figure out how to draw this. And then I'm going to use that to draw the Labubu's furry head. And then we're going to cover this with a bunch of fur, and it's going to be so cute. So for this next part, you kind of just have to trust me. What we're going to do is we're going to color this shape in and completely cover the head. The reason that we're doing this is because it's very hard to draw this line here and get it exactly perfect. So instead, we're going to use a little trick. So we're going to color it in, and then we're going to go to the layer where we drew the face. I'm going to tap on this layer, and I'm going to choose Select. Select is actually a really cool feature that not a lot of people use. And now I can go back to this layer at the top. And I'm going to go to the wrench and go to Add at the top, and I'm going to pick Cut. And it's going to cut it out perfectly for us so that we don't have to worry about trying to get it exactly the way we want. Okay, great. So now we're ready for the ears, and we can kind of figure out what we want to do with them. So I'm going to draw the traditional Labubu ears, like the bunny ears, but you could do a lot of different kinds of ears if you wanted to. So for the ears, we're going to go down to the nose, and we're just going to start a new layer here on top of our nose. And then we're going to take this layer and we're going to turn it into a drawing assist layer. So I feel like the ears, the traditional ears, are a little bit more straight like this at the start, and then they kind of round out. And don't worry if you're drawing over the template. We're going to get rid of the template after anyways, so that's totally okay if it kind of goes over. So when you're drawing the ears, you have to just remember to put a line right here to close the loop, and then you can color in the ears. Now we're ready for the best part, which is the fur. And once you learn how to do fur, you can do it to lots of different things. So I really like this technique. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this layer here at the top. And we're actually going to remove the drawing assist. So now we're going to go to the fur brush here at the top, and we're going to set it down to the bottom marker, which is 15%. And let's turn off the ears for a second just so that they don't get in the way. So we're going to use this little checkbox and turn off the ears. And then we can start drawing the fur around our head like this. And the fur brush, it's really important to follow the shape of your head. So if you don't follow the shape, if you start kind of like, I don't know, scribbling or doing funky things, the little hairs won't line up nicely. So it's really important that we take the time to kind of follow the edge like this. And we basically want to get rid of the line completely. So I don't want to see the original line. I want to put enough hair on the edge that I can't even see that line anymore. So we're going to go all the way around and add these little hairs. So you could do this with a lot of animals. You could draw like a cute furry kitty or like a monster, lots of different things. So let's just fix up one little issue. So when we're putting the fur near the chin, the hairs kind of went over the chin, but it should actually be the opposite. The chin should be on top of the fur. So we're just going to do that selection tool one more time. So I'm going to tap on the face here at the bottom and choose Select, and then go back to the layer at the top with my fur, and then choose Cut again. And we're just going to clean up that edge. There we go. That looks way better. But the Labubu actually has some hair, basically like little bangs, but we don't want to overdo this part. It's just like a little bit. So we're going to add a few little hairs here, because this part of I don't know if the Labubu is like wearing an outfit or what's going on, or if this is like it's part of its actual fur. Is it bald underneath this thing? I don't know. So we can see on the real Labubu, the chin line is very clean, but here we can see the little hairs like that, so that's why we did that detail. Great, so now we're ready to turn the ears back on, and then we can do exactly the same thing to the ears. But this time we're gonna leave the drawing assist turned on because there's 2 ears, so we might as well do both at the same time. So I'm gonna go around the edge like this and just add the little detail. We have the detail of the fur on the outside, and now we're gonna do the texture on the inside, which is a very important step. So let's go back to the top layer with the outside fur, and we're gonna alpha lock our layer. And now we need a slightly darker color. So I'm gonna grab my original color, and I'm gonna drop my circle down and to the right again, so making that L shape. And this time we wanna make our brush really big, so I'm gonna set it to the second marker at 40%. And we're gonna lower our opacity. So I'm gonna lower my opacity to 60%. So this time I'm gonna go in an up and down direction like this, and I'm gonna try and create an even distribution of the hair like this to create the texture. So if I zoom in, this is what the texture looks like, and I want it to feel nice and even across my artwork. And then we're gonna do exactly the same thing for the ears. So we're gonna alpha lock our ears, and then we're just gonna create a nice even distribution of hairs. Awesome, okay, great. So let's do the inside of the ears now. So I'm on the layer with my ears, and I'm gonna start a new layer on top. And this layer, of course, is a drawing assist layer. So I'm gonna go to my brushes, I'm gonna grab my monoline again at 40%, and then I'm gonna use the same skin tone, and I'm gonna draw the inside of the ears like this, kind of following the same shape. And I just have to remember to close the loop here at the base of the ear so I can color the shape in. The original Labubus have like an inside part. I'm gonna leave that part out. I think it's gonna be a little bit too much for my drawing here. So I'm just gonna leave my ears like this. And now we can jump into some of the shading on the face to make it look a little bit more 3D. So we're gonna go down to the layer with the face, and I'm going to alpha lock it. And I'm just gonna add some blush and some freckles before I start doing any shading. So I'm gonna go to my brushes, and I'm gonna grab the soft brush again. So for the blush, I'm gonna grab color number 8, and I'm just gonna make my brush a little bit bigger. So maybe the first marker there at 10%. And the Labubus have very high blush. So it's kind of on their side of their face like this. So that's where I'm gonna put mine. So I'm gonna go to my brushes and grab the Flicks brush and color number 4. So I'm gonna make my brush a little bit bigger, maybe like 15%, maybe like 70% for opacity. And then I'm gonna add a few freckles there. So now let's jump into some fancy shading. So Procreate has a really great feature to make shading easy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start a new layer on top of our face, and we're gonna change this to a clipping mask so that the shading stays on our face. And then we're gonna use a blending mode. So blending modes often confuse people, but there's a really simple one that I can teach you that will get you started with shading. So we're gonna go to the little N, and instead of N for normal, we're gonna change it to linear burn. I really like linear burn because you always use the same color. Okay, so I'm gonna turn on drawing assist for this layer. We're gonna grab color number 7, and then we're gonna add the shading here on the bottom. And it's gonna look like this. Okay, great. So now I'm gonna make my brush a little bit smaller, so 3% for the size. And I'm gonna add some shading here along, I guess where like the eyebrows are. And this is gonna make the eyebrows look like they're kind of a ledge over the eyes. And I really like this detail. So we're gonna use the same brush size, and we're gonna add a little shading here underneath like the bangs, I guess. I don't know what to call this part, but the Labubu's like hood is kind of casting a shadow along its forehead here. So I'm gonna add this. Okay, great. And then we're gonna do just a little bit underneath the nose, but I'll probably make my brush a bit smaller for this. So maybe just like 2%. And I'm gonna add a little shadow underneath the nose because the nose kind of sticks out, so it casts a shadow underneath here. So next I'm going to use 3% and I'm going to do a tiny little bit of a shadow underneath the eyes. I want to make sure the shadow stays really tight to the eyes. And this will make the eyes look a little bit less like stickers, like on top of the face, and more like they're part of the face. So it's going to look like this. Let's go to the top layer here with the hood of the Labubu, and we're going to start a new layer, and this layer is also going to be a clipping mask, and it's also going to be a drawing assist layer, and then we're going to change the blending mode to linear burn. So we're going to go up to linear burn. So the spot where we need some shading is here underneath the chin, and I'm just going to make my brush a little bit bigger, so maybe like 5%, and the chin is kind of casting a shadow here on the fur. So the blending mode is great for this because we don't want to lose the texture of the fur, but because we're using a blending mode, it keeps the texture for us. So the next part that we're going to do is we're going to go to the ears, and we're also going to start a new layer, and it's the same setting. So it's drawing assist and clipping mask and then linear burn. And this time it's this fleshy part of the ear that's casting the shadow. So I'm going to do like a really tight shadow along the inside part of the ear like this. So sometimes when I'm adding my shading ends up a little too dark, and I think this is a really good example of it. And the other thing that's really great about the blending mode is you can always go into the settings here and adjust this slider, and it can kind of cool down the shadows a little bit. So maybe I'll set my opacity slider to 80% and make the shadow a little less intense. So now we're going to squish this shading down with the layer underneath just to kind of organize our layers a little bit more. So I'm going to take my 2 fingers and I'm going to squish the shadow down with the part underneath. So I'm going to do this for all 3 of these parts. Okay, let's do some highlights. So we're going to start with the face, and we can also use a blending mode for the face. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a new layer. We're going to, this time we're not going to turn on drawing assist. So we're only turning on clipping mask. And we're going to go to the N, and we're going to change the blending mode down to add. Add is a really good blending mode for highlights. And I'm going to lower my opacity. I'm going to set my opacity to 20% because add is pretty extreme if you leave it at 100%. Great. And the color you always want to use is the color of the light, which is normally like a light yellow. So I'm going to use color number 12. For size, let's use 6%. And I'm just going to do a highlight here right in the middle of the forehead like this. Okay, great. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to squish this layer down with the face now that we're done using it. And then let's work on the fur part. So this part right here, the top layer. And I'm going to do the same settings. So I'm going to turn it into a clipping mask. But we don't want drawing assist because we don't want this to be symmetrical. And then we're going to use add as the blending mode. And then 20% for the opacity. It doesn't have to be exactly 20. And I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, 5%, and I'm just going to add a highlight here along the fur on the left side like this. And then I'm going to squish these 2 layers together. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the ears. Make it a clipping mask, and then add, and then 20% for opacity. And for the ears, I'm just going to add it kind of along the edge here. And it's getting a little hard to see because of the template, so I'm just going to turn that off for now and maybe change my background color so you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to kind of keep working on the highlight here. So I think that's pretty good. The one thing that still bugs me is that the inside of the ears are a little bit flat, so that's the last thing we're going to fix up. Okay, great. So let's handle the inside of the ears. So we're going to squish these 2 layers together, and then I'm going to find the fleshy part of the inside of the ears. And I'm going to start a new layer on top, And this one is also going to be drawing assist and clipping mask. And then we're going to choose linear burn for the blending mode. And then you can go back in your history to that gray color and maybe 10% for the size of the brush. And I'm just going to make the ears a little bit darker here at the bottom just so that they're not so flat. And again, I feel like I went a little too dark here, so I'm just going to use the slider and back it off a little bit. Okay, great. So that's our completed Labubu. No reason to spend oodles of dollars when you can make your own. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you had fun and picked up a few new Procreate tricks along the way. I post new tutorials every week, so don't miss the next great project I've got cooking.